Good morning, Gills fans, and welcome back to Gills in the Blood TV. As you can see, we are outside this morning. First signs of springtime, the sun is shining, so I thought I would take this one to the great outdoors for our Friday edition, which is obviously now a look at AD Pennock's morning press conference ahead of the Saturday game, and then a little match preview of tomorrow's fixture. Gills at home to Scunthorpe United, who are flying high in League One. But we will crack on straight away with what was said in AD's press conference this morning. Firstly, spoke about us and in terms of what we got to do, and he's been very impressed with the 2 wins in the last 3 games. He labelled them massive, and he also said that last week's win away at Bury on its own as an isolated game was huge. He said it was a great performance and well deserved. He said again, he's reiterated that the players have responded brilliantly since they've come in, him and Jamie Day and Steve Lovell, etc. New voices, new ideas, new approach. He said the players have been first class, but obviously they need to keep improving. He said it's not just about the 11 that start games on a Saturday or a Tuesday, and it's not about the 14, including the 3 substitutes that may or may not come on. He said it's about the whole squad. He said, and they've all been absolutely brilliant. Clean sheets, clean sheets, clean sheets. He couldn't say it enough though. He said he is desperate for clean sheets because it makes it easier to win football matches. But on the whole, very positive, and obviously why not after 6 points from the last 3 and 7 from the last 12. It's a decent return, especially when you're down the bottom. He spoke about a few individuals as well. The first one was Joe Quigley, who apparently has been called up by Ireland's under-21 side, and he labelled it a great reward for Joe after such a long road back and all the work he's put in to come back from an ACL injury. He said it's testament to not just his physical approach but also his mental strength, and he said that was great to see. He also spoke about Mitchell Dickinson again, touched on his debut last week, said it was a superb display on debut for such a youngster, and I think we mentioned in our Monday review that he described it as the performance of a seasoned pro. Zesh Raymond, he mentioned him again, labelled him with some praise regarding his approach to the youngsters and how he's been looking after them. Constant talker, really helped Mitch at the weekend, was always telling him when to sit back, when to attack the ball, where he should be positionally. So yeah, I think he's been a real blessing and a real bonus since he's come on board, Zesh Raymond, and AD seems very happy with him. And the last one that he mentioned was Cody McDonald. Said he's responded brilliantly since coming off at half-time against Coventry, which he said was a tactical reason, and obviously since then Cody's got himself in amongst the goals and also provided us with a couple of assists as well. And he said that he spoke to someone in the week who says that he tends to go on runs at this time of the season, so fingers crossed that he will, and he'll go on another one. That was who he mentioned in terms of individual players. Obviously looking ahead to tomorrow, he said he knows it's going to be a massive test. They're not playing well, but they're there on merit. They're third for a reason because they're a good footballing side and they've got good players. He said him and the staff and all most of the players went on Tuesday to Charlton, and he said at 1-1 he thought there was only side going to win it, and that was Scunthorpe. We all know they conceded a late penalty and lost, and he did joke and say that fingers crossed their poor run continues a little bit longer and into tomorrow. But more importantly, we have to worry about ourselves. We need wins by hook or by crook, he said. Generally been very good the last few, which he already touched on at the beginning. Swindon aside, he said, which he knows wasn't good enough, but apart from that, the last few performances have been improving and been very decent indeed. Regarding points, targets and safety, etc, etc, he said he wants to get to 51 or 52 as soon as possible. He thinks we'd be very unlucky if we went down with that many, but obviously the quicker we can get there the better. But we need to keep on building, keep on progressing, keep on working hard. One question he did get asked was regarding the reverse fixtures, not just for tomorrow's game against Scunthorpe but also Tuesday as we host Bolton, and he was asked would that have an effect on the players, because obviously we lost 5-0 to Scunthorpe and 4-0 at Bolton. He said that as much as it may have, it might be on players' minds a little bit. He said it shouldn't affect them. He said it's a completely different time. We've got a new manager, obviously himself, new ideas, new approaches, new shapes, new systems. We've got new personnel in terms of the signings that have come in that didn't feature in them games, so he said shouldn't have a great bearing on it. In terms of team news for tomorrow, he said that Rory, Donnelly and Bradley Garmston are definitely out. Obviously they're quite long term. Scott Wagstaff, he says, is highly unlikely he won't feature, but everyone else who's been missing, he thinks it'll be late fitness tests. It's going to be touch and go again, and they'll find out in the morning. Excuse me. He did have some praise for a couple of individuals who've come in out of the cold, I suppose, is how you could label it. He said that he's been very impressed with Mark Byrne and Emmanuel Osadebe recently. Said he had no qualms about chucking them in. He said he knows their role because obviously they train in the first team every day, so they're aware of the shapes and the responsibilities and systems that we play. But no, he said he's been very impressed. And again, he said about Mitchell Dickinson, it's the same principle. He trains with the first team, so in terms of how we play and how we set up, he knows all about that. So no issue with any of these coming back into the side. They're all good footballers. They're there on merit and being involved. So it's not such a case of chucking them in at the deep end as you'd think. He's just said this week he's hoping that we don't have any last minute withdrawals. He said because the last few he seems to have picked a side and a system, and then he's had to change it last minute. Obviously Chris Erders broke down a couple of times. Scott Wagstaff pulled out last minute last week. Dacky the week before. So he's saying he's keeping his fingers crossed and his toes and everything that this week nothing will happen last minute. He said, but we've dealt with it and we've adapted well, and that's great to see. I think the final thing about it is the fans and us and what we can do. He said be the same as we was against Southend. Said the atmosphere was absolutely brilliant. It always gives the players a lift, gives them an extra 10% or whatever. He said that they travelled brilliantly again. We went up to Bury in good numbers and was really happy that we put in a performance and got a result that warranted our support, which was great to see. So yeah, so that was the main points this morning in a nutshell. Let's have a look now. We're going to have a look at the game tomorrow in more detail. Right, this is the Friday edition of the Medway Messenger, and you can see the big headline there, 3 wins to safety is what Aidy Pennock thinks. He thinks if we can pick them up as soon as possible, we are pretty much safe. As I've already touched on, he said in his press conference he thinks 52 points or 51 points would be enough, and he thinks we'd be very unlucky if we went down with that. And just this little one here, which he touched on in the press conference, Aidy keen for no late blows. Obviously what he said in his press conference, he doesn't want any people pulling out last minute. It's frustrating in terms of planning. Inside there's a column with Mark Byrne, who writes for the Shouting Men this week. Will be out to avenge big defeat. He's obviously talking about the Scunthorpe reverse fixture back in the summer. Excuse me, the paper's going everywhere. And then there's a piece, why Gills are keen to end on a high. Emmanuel Osadebe talking about how the season has been difficult from a personal point of view and a team point of view, but he's keen to stay involved in the last 10 games or so and kick on and improve and progress, and then we start again. So yeah, that's pretty much everything in there. Obviously there was a little bit on the online yesterday as well about Greg Cundall. Cundall gets chanced after impressing in training. Greg Cundall has been given another chance to stake a claim with the Gills. He's back and going to be involved in the first team, it seems, so that's good to see. It's another option. Just one here, Josh Wright, there's a little mention about him. If he gets booked tomorrow, he will be banned for 2 games. That's obviously the ruling in place. Players are automatically handed a ban if they amass 10 yellow cards from the start of the season up until the end of this weekend. So if he can avoid one this weekend, then that's it, then it gets cut off, so fingers crossed with that. But anyway, enough about us. Obviously our opponents tomorrow are Scunthorpe. They're third, they're a good side. They absolutely battered us in August. I know, unfortunately that day was a horror show from our point of view. Stuart Nelson had a shocker. But they've not won a football match since the 28th of January, so they're not in good form. They've lost 5 of their last 8 and they've only drawn 3. I think they've only scored 3 in their last 6. And their last 4 away, they've lost 2 and drawn 2. I think they've scored in each of them, so there's a chance that they will net, because we don't keep clean sheets either. But they've conceded 7. So I don't think there could be a better time to be playing them. We've only lost once at home this year, I believe. That was Oxford. and before Christmas I don't think we'd lost a game at home for quite a while. I think you're going back to somewhere like Oldham, so generally our home form's not too bad at all. Obviously we've drawn plenty, but we're a lot more difficult to beat at home, so makes for an interesting battle. In terms of their players, obviously we all know about Josh Morris beginning of the season. He was absolutely ridiculous. It seemed every time he touched the football it went in the back of the net. I think he's got 20 goals this season in 42 appearances, but he's only got 1 in his last 8. I mean, that doesn't mean that he's not going to be a threat, and 20 goals from midfield is a brilliant statistic at this level, or any level, so fair play to him. But he's not the only one. They've got obviously Kevin Von Veen as well, who's got 11 goals this season in 37 appearances, but he's only got 3 in his last 18, so he's gone off the boil somewhat. And Paddy Madden would be another big threat, Paddy Madden. But I didn't realise he's not scored as many as I thought. He's only got 8 this season. I would say only 8. I mean, it's not a disaster, 8 in 28. But he's another one, only 1 in his last 10. So all big players for the Iron. But it seems that their sort of individual form is mirroring the form of their team, so to speak, in that they've all dropped off recently, and that coincides with obviously Scunthorpe not winning football matches. But they're going to be a threat. It's not going to be easy. They're third for a reason, and up until sort of 6 weeks ago they was absolutely flying. I had them in a blog piece that I wrote at the beginning of the season to win the league. I think they're a very good side. I think Graham Alexander's a very good manager at this level, but they dropped off, so fingers crossed we can obviously impose ourselves, work hard and get the right to play football, and then hopefully our quality can shine through. But anyway, now I'm going to get the perspective from an away fan. It's Mark, Scunthorpe fan. He can be found on Twitter. Mark Donny Iron, I believe, is his Twitter handle. But yeah, he's going to give us his thoughts on the game tomorrow, who he thinks their key players are, ours, and also a score prediction, and then I will do mine.
Saturday, Scunthorpe go to Gillingham, and it's a game that both teams want points for differing reasons. Gillingham want the points to help with securing League One status, but I don't think that'll be an issue, and Scunthorpe want the points to help with their promotion push. Up front, we've got threats in the form of Paddy Madden, Kevin Von Veen and Tom Hopper, with further threats in the midfield in the form of Josh Morris, who's been banging in goals for fun this season and has an immense free kick. Opposition-wise, we need to watch out for Josh Wright, who's an ex-Scunthorpe player, and we all know what he's capable of. Prediction-wise, I predict 2-1 to Scunthorpe in my heart, but in my head, I think it'll be a 1-1 draw.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for your video, much appreciated. It's good to get the perspective of an away fan instead of just obviously me rabbiting on every week, so cheers for that, buddy. Hope you enjoy the game. If you're coming down, obviously safe journey there and back, but I hope you don't win. Right, my prediction, a little bit of copy and pasting from every week. I believe Scunthorpe will score a goal based on the fact that they've scored in their last 4 away games. We cannot keep clean sheets however much we try, but I am feeling optimistic this week. I don't know whether that's because the sun's out or because we had a great win last week, or a little bit of both, but I'm going to go for a 2-1 Gillingham win. Goal scorers Joe Quigley and Bradley Dack. Anyway, as always, thanks for listening. Thanks for liking, subscribing, retweeting and all that. It's always appreciated and will continue to be so. Hopefully we'll see you all in the ground tomorrow for another match day live, and until then, up the Gills.